Joel, I want to bring you in here to respond to Maria Luisa, but first of all, let's just clear it up that she's accused of sort of creative accounting. Fiscal budget laws have been manhandled, and I think she has a point that other administrations have done it too, but the laws have been strengthened. Just fill us in and give us your point of view.
Let's just be clear that the scale that she has undertaken is gigantic of these accounting gimmicks. But more importantly,
what was it for? To cover up something? To make things look better?
In essence, the government, one of the key arguments in this, and just to be clear for the audience to understand, she can only be tried for things she did during her second term in office. So everything she did. 14
months.
Correct. And so one of the cases is the state banks of Brazil were subsidizing agriculture farmers. That's a completely normal thing that's been going on. The issue is she left the bill of the subsidies, transfers from the federal government to the state bank. She never paid that. And by the way, she kept that as a revenue for the government. That's sort of the accounting issues. Now I think it's—
Sounds like the U.S. Congress.
Sure. But in Brazil, this violates the fiscal responsibility law, which is inherently what destroyed Brazil's economy and hyperinflation for many years. So, but nobody is questioning that, and I don't think most Brazilians actually think she is quite honest. Her problem is that she drove the country into the ditch and she was in charge. And the politics of Brazil are putting her out of office. And I think we just need to accept that. I do think we're going to have a lot of other corruption scandals, and we're going to have to address those.
Rafael, I want to go to you because the defenders of Dilma Rousseff have basically said that this is a coup by an interest of a small economic elite who are worried about corruption investigations and also have a sort of economic liberalism agenda to impose austerity on Brazil. What's your take on that?
It's a rather limited view.
For me?
If you talk to people on the streets or poll, you can see that there is somewhat of a larger appeal to impeachment. But to go to Joel's last point, there is a charge of a fiscal responsibility crime against Dilma, but as he himself said, what really matters is that the country was in a massive recession, and therefore these charges were appealing to the opposition and had enough popular support and lack of support for Dilma that they could be brought forward. And that's what really matters in this process, and that's what this is really about when you talk about how impeachment is a political process. The charges are just a mere formality. Whether they are true or not really doesn't matter. What does matter is the political chessboard and how that was played out. Dilma herself was in a bad position to play chess in politics, basically because all the other actors did not like her. The other part of it is because she didn't have popular support, as I've said previously. Now, that being said, regarding car wash and an elite that is interested in removing Dilma, there certainly was a political elite, I wouldn't say economic, especially since during most of 2015, Brazil's economic elite just wanted to get on with the country's lives and end any rumor of impeachment. But there was a political elite that is interested in stopping the car wash investigation, or at least slowing it down, delimiting it where it currently stands in order to save their own skin. That being said, Dilma Rousseff was not interested in doing this at all. Hurt whoever it may end up hurting. And we can see right now there is movement inside the Brazil's Congress to delimit the penal effects of the Lava Jato investigations. There is movement, for example, certain statements that came out in the last month by Supreme Court ministers denouncing leaks, the same Supreme Court ministers that were approving of leaks in the past year. So this is all part of political chessboard that it's been very well played out by the opposition, who has very well exploited the situation that Dilma Rousseff put herself in, and it's playing out successfully for them. Regarding any measures that they're going to take, some of them are going to be very unpopular, and I think Joe spoke well about this in his first answer.
Let's bring in Maria Herminia in Sao Paulo. Do you think this car wash investigation into Petrobras will now go away if we see a change in the presidency? Because it really has caught the public mood. And where is anti-corruption going to be in the next administration?
Okay, but let's move a little bit before that, because I think that Dilma really committed the faults she's accused for. The question is this sufficient for an impeachment? I think no. I think the impeachment is a very tough tool that should be used very carefully. So I don't think it was a good thing for Brazil and for Brazilian democracy to have 2 impeachments in 25 years. But anyway, democracy is there, the institutions are working, and the mere process of impeachment shows that democratic institutions are working pretty well in Brazil. On the other hand, I think that Lava Jato was one of the elements of the crisis. The other one was the issue that President Rousseff lost her capacity to coordinate her support in Congress, and Brazilian presidential system relies on the president's capacity to coordinate and to negotiate with Congress. It doesn't work when the president can do that, and that was if you add the economic crisis to the process, you see how we came to this situation. I think that at this moment, there's a struggle between the agents of the justice system, the attorneys, the judges that began the Operação Lava Jato, the car wash operation, to continue, and they are in some kind of, they have been successful. For instance, some of the secretaries of President Temer had to be ousted because they have been involved in the process of Lava Jato. On the other hand, there are groups in the political elite and also, I think, in the economic elite that would like to finish this process, would like to stop with Lava Jato. And at this moment, what we are seeing is a struggle between the people that want to take Lava Jato, car wash forward, and also to approve in the Congress some measures that will make more difficult political corruption, not impossible, but more difficult. On the other hand, there are those who want to stop with this. And I think there are interests in several parties.
Okay, Maria, thank you very much. And Maria Luisa, again, I do prefer, by the way, the words car wash in Portuguese than in English. But seriously, Maria Luisa, can I ask you where you think now the future is for the Workers' Party? Because we've had 14 years of Lula, of course, beginning a very popular movement. We've got Dilma Rousseff now, but the impeachment, he, of course, faced corruption charges. There's all that controversy about when Dilma made him chief of staff. Where does that party go from now?
Yes, I think that there is a lot of confusion. Your guests don't understand the difference between a parliamentary system and a presidential system. In a democracy, if you don't abide by the rules, if you say the rules don't matter, then you're not in a democracy anymore. We are not a parliamentary system. You cannot impeach a president because you don't like her. Well, so that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous.
You've made that point before, but what about the future?
Exactly. And well, what I'm saying now is that the new policy, which is cut investments in education, in healthcare, in housing, cut investments, this is going to take the country to a more serious economic crisis. It's not going to improve the economy. And we're going to be in a limbo. We're going to be in a limbo politically because we don't know what the rules are. We're going to impeach someone in spite of the fact that she didn't commit any crime, so I don't like you, I'm going to get rid of you. That's the rule of the law now in Brazil. So we're going to have economic instability, political instability, and all the institutions now are going to be at risk because we're going to have the most corrupt politicians in charge now.
I'm glad you brought out the future and what you think the economic outcomes of all this is. Joel, here in the studio, what do you think the geopolitical outcomes of this are going to be, considering what Maria Luisa just said?
Well, Brazil can't continue to spend what it doesn't have. And so not invested in education is because Brazil doesn't have the money. And as what Brazil is doing in terms of its external policy and broadly is realigning itself with doing with it what it has, right? It's spending the money it has and not trying to dream of, for instance, they're cutting embassies. There's no need now to have an embassy at every country in Africa because Brazil can't afford it. And Brazil's going to have to invest at home with its people, with the money it has. That is going to mean
austerity hasn't always worked in the post-financial crisis. Sure. Some successes, some failures, but investment or Keynesian approach, as some economists, like in the US or China, actually did seem to work. So it depends on what sort of economy you're talking about, right?
Well, it works sometimes, and President Rousseff, some of the spending and some of the issues that have triggered in the impeachment process have to do with her anti-cyclical spending over the last several years, including those of President Lula. We sort of created this snowball scenario in Brazil. I think the country is certainly weaker today. The people are fed up, and after 9 months, they're not even going to the streets to protest whether they believe this is a parliamentary coup or they think this is just a political conspiracy. What we see is a country that wants to move on, that wants to put bread on the table, kids in school, and make sure that they've got enough health care to protect themselves from things like Zika.
What will help at the G20 in Hangzhou for Brazil? Because remember, it's a very inclusive summit, this one. Brazil obviously are going to be part of it, but other developing countries that are facing similar crises in terms of low commodity prices, low amounts of capital investment, FDI, etc.
I mean, we're obviously going to be looking for, commitments for additional investment and so forth. But I think the most important thing you will see is Brazil taking a posture of, listen, we're not trying to fix the world. We're not trying to be involved in all kinds of issues. What we want is to focus on our own country. We want some respect, and we actually want your businesses, whether it's companies from China, from the US and others, to invest in Brazil. That may not make a lot of people happy in Brazil and the left, but it certainly, I would think, make most heads of state in China happy.
Well, let's see about that. Joel, thank you very much here in the DC studio. Also, thanks to our guests in Berkeley, California, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for